The standard template construct (STC) systems were complex analytical and processing programs, artificial intelligences, created during the dark age of technology, M21 to M23. They are said to have contained the entirety of human technological knowledge up to that point. Following the age of technology, the systems became increasingly rare, until becoming lost entirely. In the current age of the Imperium, the ancient technological knowledge survives only because it was preserved in STC hard copies. An intact standard template constructor is described as a machine, a vast device made of brilliant white ceramics, silver piping, chromium chambers. The constructor is controlled by a panel beside it, with amber lights to show its activation. When activated, cowlings near the floor vented steam. When a new creation was finished, a hatch on its side would open up to allow the creation to be retrieved. STCs come in all shapes and sizes, with many not even being machines at all but rather simple blueprints or pieces of fragmented digital data. Others are huge mechanical constructs that can hold an array of construction templates while directly producing working operational prototypes. STCs seem to have some degree of artificial intelligence, as the construct on Necromunda orchestrated series of industrial sabotage actions against House Hera after they unwittingly launched a hacking attack against it. The dark age of technology saw the original development of the technology the Imperium is now reliant on, which was encapsulated into the STC systems. Along with the creation of warp drive technology and the human mutants known as navigators, the STC systems were one of the major factors in mankind's expansion outside the solar system and his conquest of the stars. The STC allowed disparate mankind to maintain a standard level of technology. A complete, functioning STC system was an evolved computer designed to provide construction details for human colonists, enabling them to build efficient shelters, generators, and transports without any prior knowledge and using almost any locally available materials. For example, the user simply asked how to build a house or a tractor and the computer would supply all the necessary plans. During the Age of Strife, the STC systems lapsed into disuse and decayed, becoming increasingly unreliable and quirky. On some worlds they were maintained, but most suffered damage by enthusiastic software specialists or subsequent jury-rigging. Hard copies of the information they contained survived much longer, and were frequently copied and passed down from generation to generation. Some imperial historians have theorized that scientists during the Age of Technology foresaw the coming of the Age of Strife, and created the STCs to ensure that their knowledge would not be lost to future generations. In the Age of the Imperium, working STCs are practically unknown. The recovery of fragments of an STC or the templates used in one is the primary focus of the Adeptus Mechanicus's quest for knowledge. Part of this quest is also to find, collate, and utilize STC printouts. The STC is their equivalent to the font of all knowledge, which is exactly what it was intended to be. Ancient recovered printouts from STCs are regarded as sacred texts. The Mechanicus strives to recover as much information as possible from them, hoping to find new knowledge, weapons, and technologies. Although the most advanced technological information eludes the Adeptus Mechanicus, through their efforts, much has been either recovered or reconstructed through comparison of copies. Probably the most significant find of an STC fragment was by Mugos Archon Land in M31. This fragment contained the templates for the construction of the now famous Land Raider main battle tank and the Land Speeder, all named in honor of their discoverer. An intact, functional STC is so rare in the galaxy as to be regarded as almost mythical, an impossibility. Nevertheless, even a rumor that such a system has been found is enough to prompt a Mechanicus expedition to locate it. If a working STC could be found, it would revolutionize the entire Imperium. The technologies lost during the Age of Strife would bring humankind back to its zenith of power, pushing the boundaries of the Imperium further and emasculating the aliens threatening mankind. Significant STC discoveries. In M30, the STC designs for the Ball Predator were discovered on the planet of Asium 3 within the ruins of Arch-Heretic Lord de Lat's fortress by the Blood Angels Space Marine Legion. The Blood Angels refused to hand this STC over to the Adeptus Mechanicus, and current is still stored on the Blood Angels' homeworld of Ball. Sometime in M31, the Mugos Archon land discovered within the Librarius Omnis the STCs for Lance Raider Pattern Main Battle Tank, Lance Crawler Multi-Purpose Heavy Utility Vehicle, the Mars Universal Land Engine, the basis of the Onager Duncrawler, and the information on rare antigravitic plates used in Land Speeder, all of which are named for him. During the Great Crusade, the STC for the Leman Russ battle tank was discovered by the Space Wolves after they had destroyed the Nomen Xenos. They named the fruits of the STC in honor of their Primarch. After the Battle of 6319, 3 new STCs were recovered from the planet 6319 by the Luna Wolves Astartes Legion. 2 STC fragments were captured from the Oretian technocracy by the War Master Horus Lupercal prior to his rebellion against the Imperium. One for a new pattern of power armor, the other for lightweight solar generators capable of supplying the power needs of an Epsilon 5 pattern forge complex. This technology was gifted to the Fabricator General of Mars at the time, Kelbier Hal, to secure his loyalty for the rebellion. The technocracy had fully functional STC machines, however they were destroyed to prevent the Sons of Horus from capturing them. During the period known as the Forging in M32, a valuable STC database was rediscovered in the Canis system. In the end of the Icaria Crusade in M35, an ancient factory complex with databanks from the Dark Age of technology was located on Furnost by the Fraterus Templars. The Church bartered the knowledge of the location of these databanks in exchange for exclusive rights to any technology stored within them. While the databanks only had half-formed STCs for a flamethrower-equipped tank, these STCs were combined with the STC for the Rhino to create the Immolator subpattern. During the War of Recovery in 104 of M36, several first-generation copies of STC databases concerning certain individual technologies were recovered on the planets of the Mortuum chain. In M36, the STCs for weapon suits known as the 15th Bellum Ravager and Thermi missile suit were discovered by the Adeptus Mechanicus, but proved too difficult to reproduce. In M36, the STC for a larger chassis of Land Speeder was discovered. This would be used to create the Land Speeder Vengeance and Dark Shroud variants. Following the Age of Apostasy, the Centurion STC was discovered. Between 322 to 384 of M39, a STC database fragment, known as the Aegis data fragments, was discovered. In the Calixtus sector during the Angevin Crusade, sometime prior to 887 of M39, Archmagos Plosk recovered 5 first-generation STC printouts. In 887 of M39, a complete STC database was discovered within the pre-Imperium void ship Spirit of Eternity. Despite resistance from the STC's AI, Archmagos Plosk was able to download a significant fraction of the STC database before the ship managed to escape. This was an uncorrupted AI, but it was insane with grief over the death of its captain. In M39, the STC template for the Omega pattern plasma blast gun was discovered by explorator Mugos Belisal Humanael. Sometime in M40, the STC for improved jet engines was discovered by the Dark Angels, and named the Lionheart engine. These were used to create the Nephilim jet fighter. The Dark Angels refused to hand this STC over to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Prior to 775 of M41, an STC for a combat knife was discovered by two Imperial Guard scouts that was sharper and lighter and tougher. They were hailed as heroes for this discovery, and received a planet each. The knife was adopted by 30 chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, between 775 to 778 of M41, a standard template constructor, designed to produce the legendary Men of Iron, was discovered on the planet Menazoid Epsilon, during the Sabbat Worlds Crusade by Colonel Commissar Ibram Gaunt. However, the constructor had been corrupted by the long-time occupation of the planet by the forces of chaos, and so Gaunt ordered it destroyed, inadvertently thwarting the plans of Lord Militant Hector Dervere and Radical Inquisitor Golesh Haldane to use the Men of Iron for their own advancement. In 992 of M41, the STCs for most of the Astrea Super Heavy tank were recovered by the Minotaur's chapter Astartes during the Perrin Cross incident. In 999 of M41, an original STC Titan, a Castigor class autonomous bipedal weapons platform, created for fire support and siege operations, was discovered on the planet Charania. It was quite larger than an Imperator Titan and of superior technology. The Titan, and its STC AI, were destroyed by a force of Grey Knights, although some data fragments remains were collected by the Adeptus Mechanicus, while connected to the machine spirit of the Arch Mechanicus ship Speranza. Archmagos Lexel Kotov discovered that the ship contained a complete and still updating STC database containing all the knowledge of the Men of Gold and their ancestors. He theorized that all Arch Mechanicus ships contained such a database, but that the priesthood have been unable to access the files. This information was wiped from his mind upon disconnecting from the ship's machine spirit. An unknown time before the events of Priests of Mars, Mugos Ozymandian unlocked the STC engine fragment of Beta Umojas. This led to a 5% paradigm shift. Less than half a millennia prior to the events of Priests of Mars, Mugos Phlogiston discovered a near-complete STC for a certain design of Titan-class plasma reactor Kickstarter. The Kickstarter was designed to bring the reactor up to full power in the shortest time possible. Among the missing data fragments were components needed to prevent the Kickstarter from driving the reactor into uncontrolled critical mass. Due to this, the designs were archived. Instead of being put into production, an STC called Panacea, a medical miracle that could save billions of human lives from poison and disease, was found on the Imperial Forge World Verdigris 9th. It was stolen by the Dark Eldar Malice and her cable in the Panacea Wars. An STC library is located on the planet Hedo. This planet escaped the warp and was reclaimed by the Imperium. The library was hidden by the local Order of Heavenly Virtues, who managed to deceive Imperial agents. This was achieved by the display of library of hard copies of STC printouts, leading the Imperium to believe that was the reputed STC library, when in actuality an actual STC was hidden far beneath the displayed library and only accessible via teleportarium. The STCs for the Lion pattern bolt gun and Inferno pattern Avenger ground attack craft were discovered in the space Hulk Olethros by a Dark Angels Terminator squad. The Bolter's STC was found in the fused wreckage of a pre-heresy Dark Angel ship, Caliban's Will. Lesser STC fragments were also recovered, such as those for an industrial plasma cooler, bunker, and military cot. STC fragments for Mark IV power armor and an arc rifle were also recovered throughout the Space Hulk. The STC schematics for a Geller device as known as an Imperial bomb was developed on the Forge World Velchanos Magna and deployed in an attempt to clear a nearby warp storm. Unfortunately, the device caused the warp storm to envelop the planet and it was declared lost for centuries. The STC was rediscovered by Mugos explorator Omnid Torquora in the wreckage of the Stella Zenithica. In reality, the STC had been planted in the derelict as a trap by the Iron Warriors, in a ploy to capture both Forge worlds. Omnid destroyed all copies of the STC due to it causing the destruction of 2 entire Forge worlds and countless Mechanicus forces. The STC for a type of paint, provisionally known as Substance 145XX22, was rediscovered by a combined force of Skitarii and Imperial Guard. The paint bared a unique chemical composition and allowed for the painting of war gear to be completed in a much shorter time. While the Skitarii suffered heavy casualties in recovering the STC, it was secured for the Imperium by Commissar Trask. The discovery of this STC caused rebellion on several hive worlds responsible for painting vehicles and forced the Imperium to enact a full compliance action upon the citizens of the pigment wells of Agrax. Due to this, the STC was suspected of being somehow corrupted by chaos. The STC took several hundred years to be declared uncorrupted and fully sanctioned by the Senatorum Imperialis. For securing the STC, Commissar Trask was rewarded with a governorship over a low-level agri-world and naming rights of Substance 145XX22. Unfortunately, as it took several hundred years for the STC to be fully sanctioned, it is unlikely that Commissar Trask survived long enough to receive the reward. After the creation of the Great Rift, the tech priest Gallius Maltherion discovered an STC who considered it a blessing of the machine god.